Welcome back to Irregular Mind. I am your host Santosh. Thank you for joining me as we continue unraveling the story of America's fight for independence. Last time, we followed the bold actions of Sons of Liberty, the first shots at Lexington and Concord, and the early steps towards unity at First Continental Congress. The colonies were no longer just voicing their frustrations, they were preparing for the long road ahead. Today, we pick up with the Second Continental Congress, the fierce resistance at Bunker Hill, a final plea of peace through the Olive Branch Petition, and the key victories and ideas that paved the way for independence. Before we dive in, a quick reminder if you are enjoying Irregular Mind, please take a moment to follow, rate, and share this podcast. Your support means the world and help me reach more history lovers like you. Now, let us return to the spring of 1775, where the colonies faced an uncertain but determined future. It's May 1775, just weeks after the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Delegates from all 13 colonies convened in Philadelphia for Second Continental Congress. Unlike the first Congress, this wasn't just a meeting to draft grievances or propose boycotts. It was about organizing for war. The first major decision to create a continental army. The colonies had local militias, but they needed a united force to take on Britain. And for the role of commander in chief, they chose a name that would echo through the history: George Washington. Washington wasn't just a skilled military leader, he was also a unifying figure. A Virginian at the helm of the army symbolized that this wasn't just a New England fight, it was a struggle for all the colonies. Barely a month later, on June 17, 1775, colonial forces clashed with the British in one of the Revolution's most famous battles, the Battle of Bunker Hill. The battle didn't actually take place on Bunker Hill, but on nearby Breed's Hill in Charlestown overlooking Boston. Knowing the British planned to seize the high ground, colonial forces under Colonel William Prescott moved quickly, fortifying the area overnight. As dawn broke, the British realized they had a problem. General William Howe, demanding the British forces, launched a full frontal assault to dislodge the colonies. The British troops advanced in tight formations, their red coats stark against the grassy hillside. Colonel Prescott famously ordered his men, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." Ammunition was scarce, and every shot had to count. The colony's first volley was devastating, cutting down wave after wave of British soldiers. The British regrouped and charged again, only to be repelled a second time. On the third assault, the colonies running low on ammunition were forced to retreat. The British captured the hill, but at a staggering cost of over 1,000 British casualties compared to about 400 colonial losses. Though technically a British victory, Bunker Hill was a moral triumph for the colonies. It proved they could stand up to the might of British army, and it bolstered their confidence for the battles to come. Despite the growing violence, not everyone in the colonies was ready for full independence. Many still hoped the reconciliation with Britain is possible. In July 1775, the Congress sent the Olive Branch Petition to King George III, a heartfelt plea for peace. The petition reaffirmed the colony's loyalty to the crown but demanded a halt to oppressive measures such as intolerable acts. It reflected the colonists' hope that King would intervene on their behalf against the Parliament's overreach. But King George III was in no mood to compromise. By the time the petition reached him, news of Bunker Hill had spread. To him, the colonists weren't loyal subjects, they were rebels. The king refused to even read the petition and declared the colonies in open rebellion. The rejection of Olive Branch Petition marked the point of no return. The colonists realized that if they wanted liberty, they had to fight for it. As 1775 turned into 1776, the Continental Army was gaining strength under Washington's leadership. Their first major victory came in Boston, a city under British control since start of the conflict. Using artillery captured from Fort Ticonderoga, the Continental Army fortified Dorchester Heights, a strategic position overlooking Boston Harbor. The move caught the British off guard. Trapped and unable to defend their positions, the British, under General William Howe, decided to evacuate. On March 17, 1776, British troops and loyalists boarded the ships and left Boston. The victory wasn't just a boost for morale, it was a proof that Continental Army could outmaneuver and outlast the British. Even as battles raged, the colonies were engaged in the war of ideas. In January 1776, Thomas Paine published a pamphlet that would change everything. Its name was Common Sense. Written in plain, accessible language, Paine's pamphlet made a compelling case for independence. He attacked the monarchy as unjust and argued that the colonies had not only the right but the duty to break free from the British rule. Common Sense resonated deeply within public, selling over 100,000 copies in just a few months. It turned the tide of public opinion, rallying support for idea of independence and laying the intellectual groundwork for declaration of independence. And now we come to one of the most pivotal moments in American history, the Declaration of Independence, a document that didn't just declare freedom but defined what it meant to fight for liberty. The story begins on June 7th, 1776, when Richard Henry Lee, a delegate from Virginia, stood before the Continental Congress and proposed a resolution that would change the course of history. The resolution was simple yet revolutionary. It stated, resolved that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, and all political connections between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. Lee's proposal was bold, but it wasn't without resistance. Some delegates were hesitant. Declaring independence was a monumental step, one that could lead to severe consequences, including war with the most powerful empire in the world. To gain consensus, the Congress postponed the vote and appointed a committee to draft a formal declaration, just in case the resolution passed. The responsibility of crafting the Declaration of Independence fell to a committee of 5 men, often referred to as the Committee of Five. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, Robert R. Livingston of New York. Each member brought unique strengths to the table. Adams was fiery and passionate, Franklin was wise and diplomatic, and Jefferson was known for his eloquent writing. It was Jefferson who took on the primary task of drafting the document. According to Adams, Jefferson was chosen because of his masterly pen and because the Adams humorously noted Jefferson was a Virginian and a Virginian ought to appear at the head of this business. Jefferson retreated to a quiet room in Philadelphia where he poured his thoughts onto paper. Drawing inspiration from Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke, Jefferson wrote about natural rights of man, the responsibilities of governments, and the right of people to overthrow the oppressive regimes. His draft was powerful and poetic, setting forth the ideals that would define the American Revolution and resonate for generations. When Jefferson presented his draft to the Committee of Five, it underwent minor revisions before being submitted to the Continental Congress on June 28, 1776. Over the next few days, the Congress debated the text intensely. Jefferson's eloquent prose was admired, but not all of it survived the editing process. One significant change involved the removal of the passage condemning the British Crown for perpetuating the transatlantic slave trade. This section was struck out to ensure support of southern colonies, highlighting the compromises and contradictions that would haunt the new nation for years to come. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted to approve Lee's resolution for independence. 2 days later, on July 4th, 1776, the Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence. The date is now celebrated as Independence Day, but at the time it was just a beginning of the long and arduous struggle for freedom. When it came time to sign the declaration, John Hancock, the president of Continental Congress, was the first to put his name on the parchment. And what a signature it was! Large, bold, and unmistakable. According to the legend, Hancock declared, there, I guess King George will be able to read that without his spectacles. Hancock's flamboyant signature became so iconic that even today the phrase, put your John Hancock here, is synonymous with signing your name. It's a rare example of a single flourish of a pen becoming an enduring part of pop culture. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a declaration of intent, it was a carefully crafted argument to justify colonies' break from Britain. It laid out three major principles. All men are created equal and endowed with an unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Governments derive their power from consent of governed and exist to protect these rights. If a government becomes destructive to these ends, the people have the right to alter or abolish it. These principles were revolutionary. They challenged the very foundation of monarchy and inspired oppressed people around the world to fight for their rights. The document was sent to printers, and copies were distributed across the colonies and beyond. In towns and cities, it was read aloud to cheering crowds. It gave the colonists a sense of purpose and unity, turning the rebellion into a revolution. The Declaration has left an indelible mark on American culture. From national treasure, where it plays a key role in thrilling treasure hunt, to countless political speeches referencing its ideals. The line, "We hold these truths to be self evident," has become a symbol of freedom and equality. Even Hamilton, an American musical, brings the Declaration to life. With a vibrant portrayal of the fiery debates and personalities behind the document, in one memorable moment, the character of Jefferson boasts about his role in drafting the Declaration, highlighting the enduring fascination with this monumental achievement. The Declaration of Independence was more than a statement, it was a promise that the colonies were willing to fight for their freedom even against unsurmountable odds, a promise that the ideals of liberty, equality, and self governance would guide the new nation. Its adoption on July 4th, 1776 marked the birth of a nation, but it was only the beginning of the fight for independence. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but the declaration gave the colonies something to believe in, a vision of a free and just society. And that's a wrap for this episode of Irregular Mind. Today, we saw the colonies transform from scattered rebels into a united force ready to fight for their freedom. From the resolve at Bunker Hill to the bold ideas in Common Sense and the momentous signing of Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution is now in full swing. In our next episode, we'll explore the battles, alliances, and strategies that turned the tide of war and secure America's independence. If you are enjoying Irregular Mind, please follow, rate, and share this podcast. Your support keeps these stories alive and bring history to curious minds everywhere. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time as we continue the incredible journey through the history.